So we're going to find the absolute extrema of just a little bit more of a complicated function. So we're going to use the function sine x plus cosine x on the interval negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So as before, what we want to do is find the derivative of f. So in this case, f prime of x is equal to cosine x minus sine x. So then we want to find where the derivative is either equal to 0 or does not exist. Cosine and sine are defined every place, so there's no place where their derivative doesn't exist. So we're just looking for places where this expression cosine x minus sine x is 0. So if cosine x minus sine x equals 0, one way to look at that is that means that cosine x must equal sine x. Now, you could solve that equation simply by knowing the unit circle well enough to know where in this interval negative 2 to negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, where the cosine and sine are equal to each other. If you can't come up with that, though, what you could do is you could just divide both sides by cosine, and that would give you sine x over cosine x is equal to 1, which means that tangent of x is equal to 1, which means that x is equal to arctangent of 1. That gives you x is pi over 4. And of course, since we're actually in, the interval that we're given is actually the range of arctangent, we don't have to do any adjustments to that answer. We can simply use x equals pi over 4. So now what we would need to do is evaluate f, the original function, at the endpoints and the critical points. So f of negative pi over 2, that's one of the endpoints, is going to be sine of pi over 2, sorry, the sine of negative pi over 2 plus cosine of negative pi over 2. That is equal to, sine of negative pi over 2 is negative 1, cosine of negative pi over 2 is 0, so this is going to be negative 1. F of pi over 2, that's the other endpoint, will be sine of pi over 2 is 1, and cosine of pi over 2 is 0, so that just equals 1, and then finally we need to evaluate f of pi over 4. The sine of pi over 4 is root 2 over 2, and the cosine of pi over 4 is also root 2 over 2. So when we add them together, we get just root 2. That's approximately equal to 1.41. So what we can see is that this number, even though we only have an approximation of it, is going to be higher than either of these numbers. So we can see that the minimum value is going to be negative 1, and the maximum value will be root 2. We'll just write that here and say that we have an absolute max is a square root of 2, and it occurs at x equals pi over 4, and the absolute min is negative 1, and it occurs at x equals negative pi over 2. So there we go. Just keep in mind, let's see, the question was, what are the absolute extrema and where do they occur? If the question is simply, what are the absolute extrema, this is the answer. To actually give an entire point would be a wrong answer. You want to just give the y value of the function as the absolute max and absolute min. Since the question also asked us to say where they occur, we separately say that they occur at these particular x values.